Okay, Sahil, so we've got another question. A very, again, a very relevant question of the current era, but, a nasty one as well. But I want to ask this question on behalf of a friend who sent me this. And the question is, why should we hate the mullahs and maulvis of the world? Let me repeat. Why should we, as people, normal people, hate the maulvis and mullahs of the world? So this question comes from a friend who is currently fixated on the idea that the maulvis are the core reason of evil in the Islamic world.
Okay. Yeah, I know what you mean.
So, here's another difficult question.
Actually, no, it's a good question. In a way that it represents the actual perception of the whole clan of people who are representing religion. And the answer is no, we shouldn't hate the mullahs. We should not hate the Maulvi.
Okay.
That's the straight answer. It's a short version of the answer. But I know what this question is way deeper than this.
Yeah.
He didn't ask, should we? He said, why should we hate him? Because there's an inner cry saying, I don't wanna, but I
still
hate him. And there's a wider, the problem has a wider spectrum, and this hue and cry is from an inner subset of the real problem with our generation, our era. Let's not talk about generation. Let's just talk about the last few hundred years.
Yeah.
And not even that, because mullahs were a very influential power in the last 300 years, till the last 300-400 years. If anything, they were the only thought leaders of not just the world, but specifically our area in our region, from Persia to India. They were formidable names who were actually the top philosophers, and they were arguing in the finest possible way against the biggest tyrannies of the region here. Not just here, but everywhere. But I'm talking about relevantly here, because I do not know whether everybody hates the Maulvi the way Pakistan, Indian, Bangladeshis hate the Maulvis here. I think we have a way bigger, disgusting impression psychologically, and people are against putting their kids in the Madrasa.
Yeah.
And I know women would cry if I tell them, you wanted to send your kids to Berkeley or Cambridge, but I did something better. I put them in a course in the Jamia Al-Azhar for 8 years. She's going to have a heart attack.
Yeah.
She's going to have a name Fatima or something, but she doesn't want it.
Yeah.
Or Jamia Al-Azhar is a very hard name, by the way. I put her in Bajor.
Oh my God.
You know what I'm saying? So I know that there's an inner psychological repulsion against the Madrasa. And it's not the Maulvi, it's the Madrasa. Maulvi is just an outcome of the Madrasa. And there is reason why that has happened, even though the biggest thought leaders, and I'm talking about scientifically, anthropologically, our behavior in this region was shaped by the Maulvi alone. Jinnah had lesser influence on this region. Gandhi had lesser influence on this region than Ahmad Raza Barelvi.
Yeah.
And if I give you a little bit of a hierarchy of how many people in a descending order, not descending order, but at least in the top 5 names that I know that have created a far bigger influence on this region in terms of mental growth, thought leadership, and those were all religious people. You cannot name an atheist from here. You cannot name a scientist from here. You cannot name a scientist from here. You cannot name anybody other than hardcore religious philosophers.
Yeah.
Like them or not, they are the only people who did do whatever it took to create the influence. Now, you can argue, one can argue that people were looking for it. People are too emotional and religious people here.
Yeah.
Well, that's irrelevant. What was relevant is that whoever was trying to take the initiative of coming into a pedestal of influence and then leadership and then practice whatever he thought was right. Doesn't matter whether you believe or not. But he did practice in whatever he believed in. Now, let's just assume that I don't believe, or a Pakistani doesn't believe in the madrasa, but then he's not doing anything about it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? We see Asma Jahangir's and we see Nawaz Sharif's and Imran Khan's, but they have a far less influence than Ashraf Ali Thanvi, Ahmad Zabarelvi, Dr. Israr, or Ghamdi. You know what I'm saying? These people have a way bigger canvas of influence. So that means thought leadership is somehow taught in the madrasa.
Yeah.
And it's practice or not, or the way it's practiced is something which you agree to or not, is of a different discussion. The real discussion is, they have not really penetrated the class where you actually define something which is appealing to you.
Yeah.
So they couldn't really create the appeal. And that's where basic serotonin hierarchy comes into play. I'm sorry, that's how it is. I'm sorry.
Serotonin is in the canvas again.
Yeah, because if these same people with the same vigor, same vigor, because their vigor is treated as venom. And if they were actually leftists, with the same courage attributes, personal attributes of Ashraf Ali Thanvi, if he was a leftist, he would have been a global leader. Which he, by the way, is.
Kinda.
Because it's a big power of influence. He's got a way bigger canvas. And by the way, he's one of my favorite people from this region. I rate him even more than Shah Waliullah.
Oh my God.
I do. In terms of the way he was, where he was, the way he was placed, the kind of forces he was against, Shah Waliullah had a lot more equity. And he had a lot more. Of course, no credit taking away from, because if you ask Ashraf Ali Thanvi, he's going to be slapping me. What the hell are you talking about? I'm not even a dot in the ocean compared to him. But I'm talking about for our region. I think the kind of dust Ashraf Ali Thanvi was cleaning. Shah Waliullah had a lot. It was way easier. People really knew from black and white. You know what I'm saying? So this kind of thought leadership was way more influential. And then you can see in the current times, you can see how Maulana Ishaq was facing a lot of arrows. He still is. People saw about Maulana Ishaq.
We've got the typical Maulvis.
The right hates. They hate. Despicable. You know what I'm saying? But I think
and similar with Dr. Israr as well. He was alienated in the last year.
He should have been alienated. You know why? Because he was actually threatening the core of the left philosophy. You know what I'm saying? Ishaq was not threatening. If anything, he was way more towards the left than anyone else. But when you look at the Maulvi. And nobody hates Maulana Ishaq from the left, and everybody hates that same Maulvi from the right. So we have to see, how the hell is this diagram coming into play. And if you're not looking at it intellectually, then you don't have a say in whether you hate somebody or not. If you have that kind of intellect or an acumen to actually understand of where thought leadership actually sets itself in terms of influence and morality, and where the hell these people want or are taking the whole flock, then you can see it. I can see that. I can read the map, and I can pinpoint of whether I want to be in that train or that train because it's leading to that station. But people don't really know where any Maulvi is taking them, except the masjid. You know what I'm saying? Except the 3-4 commandments that every masjid has. That you got to do this system. Where the real serotonergic placement of hierarchy is done, which was done in Medina, by the way. That's the first thing every Sahabi was doing. That we can't change the hierarchical structure. And that's why Muaz bin Jabal resigned in front of Abu Bakr Siddiq, and he said, I cannot report to you because I report to the Supreme
The
Being.
Supreme Being, yeah.
And Abu Bakr Siddiq was like, you don't understand my leadership model.
Yeah.
And he was like, I understand your leadership model, but you don't understand the leadership model.
The leadership model.
This is the kind of argument two thought leaders can have.
Yeah.
And that was an awesome argument.
Yeah.
But here, you can't have that because thought, leadership, and intellectual acumen was not determined specifically when we send the weakest person of the house to the madrasa, and the strongest person to Harvard. And that flips the whole leadership diagram because both of them actually were taught that Muhammad bin Abdullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is the prophet and right and wrong comes from Allah, and all of a sudden, no, but you gotta obey the pop culture. Right now, the American dream is their only thing.
Yeah.
Either you don't give him the philosophy of something which is against the American dream and let him chase the American dream. And I'm okay with that. You know what I'm saying? But because he's going to be way less devastating to the rest of the community. Because at least we'll know that he's, a Salman Rushdie. I'm okay with that. I respect the fact that at least he chose a side. But I don't respect him at all. But what I'm saying is that at least he's not confused. Or Majid, what's his name? The ex-Muslim Society's English guy. I keep forgetting this guy's name because I don't really listen to him that much. You know what? People who actually choose not to be Muslims, even though they were born in a Muslim household. Those are the people who actually represent people who hate the Maulvi. And they do something about it. People in Pakistan who want to go to heaven and still hate the Maulvi, that's a problem of the first 12, 13 years of the childhood. That you got two different opposing philosophies coming in. It's called cognitive dissonance in psychology. It creates an opposing two forces. And which force is going to win? Whichever is the superpower of the current era. It doesn't matter which one is right or wrong. So America is always going to win in every human brain as a superior and right philosophy to follow, because it is prevalent in the current system, and the child only obeys to the alpha male because that's the design of the serotonin. And if we do not declare the right alphas in the early childhood, he's going to actually start questioning the right alphas, and that's where atheism actually starts to grow.
So what was happening in the last 50 odd years, before the last 50 odd years, the intelligentsia of the nation was the people who, the most learned people were the people of madrasas, and the people who went to different, the religious schools of the world, to the Egyptian universities and to Medina universities and the Moroccan universities.
Sudan.
In Sudan. For the religious education, and they came back.
The last 50 years. The last 100 years.
But I'm talking about before last 50 years. So that was the apex time of people going back to and they came back and they became the thought leaders. They became the political thinkers. They became even the scientists of that era. We've got people like Sir Syed Ahmed Khan coming back, and and his disciples coming back, and giving us a different brand of Islam, though quite apologetic to be very precise, but at least they were thinkers of some sort. They were the pseudo mullahs at that time, and people used to follow them a lot, and they still follow them a lot. So they're easier mullahs to love. But now somehow the weakest people in the society are the Maulvis, and they've got absolutely no intellectual capital with them.
Well, let me give you a physiological diagram of this. First and foremost, the right is always going to be hated by the left. Now you have to see this left and right polarity is placed in which era. If the prevalent philosophy is pro-left, then it doesn't really matter of how right the rightists are.
Yeah.
How? Because there is not going to be any appeal.
Appeal, yeah.
The diagram of appeal is determined by the prevalent philosophy, and in a lot of smaller clusters, the right and left appeal is created through the prevalent philosophy. So the mullah is never going to be liked, unless, of course, he starts to dress up like an American
Hipster?
star, star. Or he goes closer towards it, or he comes something which is conspicuous for the right.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So if he has a smaller beard,
Yeah.
or an English accent,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? So whatever he takes from the prevalent philosophy, and I'm talking about English here because English is the prevalent philosophy right now. It was a totally different diagram, but the same rule, same phenomenon was going on 200 years ago. And so on. 300 years ago it was something else, and 600 years ago it was something else. So this is how the physiological behavior is designed. It is hardwired. So unless you change, okay, let me give you another example. If you do not have a TV in the house, no matter for what reason, you're not going to hate mullahs. You can disagree with them, and you will argue against them, but you're not going to hate them. But if you have it, and of course I'm talking about any screen, but if you have a direct exposure which is coming from the bigger canvas of whatever the global heroes are declared and whatever is cool, then you're never going to listen to the mullah, even if it's your father. Even if he's your big brother, your father, most beloved sibling, you're going to be like, no, you know what, you represent someone who everybody hates, man. You've been Laden to me. You know what I'm saying? You're Zawahiri, and so on. So it's not that you hate it; it's what you love. Is where the definition of your beloved are coming from. The definition of your beloved, and that's coming from the prevalent pop culture. That's why the mullah is. This is science. This is not about how much of a believer you are in religion. It doesn't really matter what kind.
So let me ask a very serious question here. Would you put your own child in any of the madrasas of Pakistan today?
Yeah. If there is a thought leader in that madrasa, yeah, why not? See, if you
Which one, for example?
I would have to test that because right now my kids don't go to school.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
my kids are getting tuition. Yeah. Because I knew that this is exactly because I had to start with my own kids if I was trying to actually change the diagram of the education sector, which we are professionally. So we can't just say, you know what, my kids go to Beacon House, but you got to change how Beacon House is designed, and that's what my experiment yields. They'll be like, dude, why are you, putting your own kids into fire and you're telling us, you're going to take us out. So I experimented with my kids. I started off with an IQ experiment, or how to raise an IQ, because I really believe that the current system of education drops the IQ of a child. And it caps it as well, not just drops it, locks it.
So, but
that's not the question.
For example, if you do not want to send your child to a school, then why do you want to send your child to a madrasa? Because it's a different kind of...
I'm talking about leadership here. I'm not talking about for permanent 8 years course.
Yeah.
I'm talking about getting an intellectual juice out of it.
Do you think that they have some kind of intellectual juice right now in Pakistan? The mullahs and the maulvis, can they? Yeah. They have this juice, and they do have the intent or
I never doubt
or the capacity to deliver?
When it comes down to product intent, I think the Maulvi has a far superior intent diagram than anybody else. Intent. Competence, yeah, we can really, really talk about that. Because if they were competent, they would have been using a lot more science and put a lot more people under their banner. Right now, most of the people hate them, and you gotta admit.
These are the Pakistani mullahs right now. 90% of them, the mainstream mullahs, are in politics.
Oh, yeah,
so which by default 90% of
all of the people from Adam were in politics.
Yeah, no, I'm talking about the current.
It's going to be like this till the current. It's going to be like this till the judgment day. Most of the people are going to be in political diagrams, trying to get some power of whatever.
I understand, but the very system that they want to fight, they are part of the system. and they get elected.
And that's where you need to see the thought leaders, not the political leaders.
So the problem is we do not have such people. The people we had Maulana Ishaq, he is no more. May Allah bless him. We had Dr. Israr, he is no more.
I don't think Dr. Israr was a thought leader.
Well, I disagree.
Yeah, well, you can.
Yeah, I disagree.
What I like, you should disagree.
Yeah,
but
I disagree on this point because I've been personally following him for last 3 odd years. I was not fortunate enough.
The way he was constructing the very arguments against a lot of things were not his own. First of all, he's not a thought leader.
Exactly. See, thought leadership is not about creating your own ideas all the time.
No, it's not just that.
Yeah.
But it has this single.
And however, I don't know, but he was the only one who was against the status quo. To a level that he was actually trying to muster up or bring up a revolution. But at least when he tried to do that, nobody in the whole canvas, including the apex mullahs of Saudi Arabia who were complacent to their government, he was the only one.
That's his intent. That's not his thought.
But he had the competence as well.
I highly doubt. I'm in no way to doubt his knowledge, but I'm talking about.
He had the competence. He had the
weakest of the grips in all of those categories in which he was competing with the contemporaries. In hadith, actually, he was the weakest in hadith. Okay, actually, he himself said that I have no grip on and that actually disqualified him from the very pedestal he's sitting on, first and foremost. Secondly,
he said hadith means he meant fiqh itself.
The whole specific knowledge. Secondly, I'm talking about his own contemporaries, for God's sakes. His own contemporaries were wiping the floor with this guy when it comes down to the knowledge of hadith. Secondly, his interpretation of the Quran, and I've read Bayan al-Quran twice. He had serious arguments against Sayyid Qutb in Fizul al-Quran, and I'm thinking the guy actually has way more evidence of the power to actually change towards Khilafah, which, by the way, Dr. Israr was fighting for in Pakistan. I don't know where he was placing his argument. If you study Dr. Israr and his contemporary, that's why he didn't get the right. I'm talking about the rightists. Rightists were not following Dr. Israr in numbers which he could have had if he had more research about, his own category of knowledge.
The biggest problem was that the right at that time the right was so much into politics. It was
not the political right. Okay, let me give you an example. Why do you think the low socioeconomic class did not follow the Dr. Israr's movement? That's the one way of actually checking out whether if there any political influence in his following or not.
But he had a different idea.
He was not known as a scholar in his contemporaries.
Because he was not trying to address the lower classes, the lower SECs he wanted to talk to the intelligentsia, the people who understand.
He wanted to.
He wanted to, but
that's why
that was his whole life.
I'm for Dr. Israr and I'm for all of the people who are actually doing something about it. But if you compare Dr. Israr from in his contemporaries, he was the weakest of them all.
For example, give me one.
Dr. Israr was way weaker in terms of his grip on hadith than Maulana Ishaq.
Well, that is for sure. But I way weaker. Dr. Israr is like this, and Maulana Ishaq is like this. I take this.
I'll tell you the fact how it psychologically.
I know this for a fact.
I know. So we agree here, right? So when you have a following which is in millions, I'm talking about for Maulana Ishaq's, why do you think they didn't collaborate in following? They have the same objective, right? The philosophy. Why do you think they didn't collaborate in following? They have the same objective, right?
The
philosophy is the same. No.
Philosophy is the same. The objective was different.
Regional objective could be different. But the bigger objective is the same. So why do you think these people couldn't collaborate? Because Ishaq is not a political figure.
Yeah, not at all.
But he didn't give out his following to Israr.
Never did, yeah. He used
That's
to.
what I'm talking about. That's why I'm saying. If he had respect,
I don't know, because both of them are no more, and if I
could
could
have
have.
spoken to both of them.
Yeah. Really?
Yeah.
And you asked why they did
No, not
not.
this question, but
Yeah,
I
yeah.
kind of had an opinion as to.
Yeah.
They're very explicit about their opinion about each other.
But by the way, guys, please go to YouTube and you can look up Dr. Israr if you don't know him, and Maulana Ishaq if you don't know him. So if you can do that, then you will understand what we're talking about right now. But the contemporaries, the excellent, intelligent Maulvis, both of them did not say that they're Maulvis and Mullahs of the
You'll be
Qur'an.
amazed as to how many women I know who actually hate Dr. Israr and they think all Maulvis are like this. It's too aggressive. And
That stance was always.
when I was actually giving the answer, I was actually factoring that part of psychology in there as well. Because that's why and by the way, Maulana Ishaq is way more repulsive for the left than Dr. Israr. But he's not. When you look at, when you take a little poll, you'll find out that Dr. Maulana Ishaq is one of those people who people actually love. And the left loves him.
And see, Maulana Ishaq was always advocating Ittihad and Tanzeem all the time. But still it worked. He was friends with the Shias. He was a Wahhabi himself.
And still he was not friends with the Wahhabis.
And still he was not friends with Wahhabis, He was friends with the Shias, he was friends with the Sunnis, the Barelvis and everybody. But he had influence everywhere. Because it was his objective. Dr. Israr did not have the objective of making friends with people. He was portraying as the most disruptive person.
Doubting Dr. Israr's intent. Why couldn't he collaborate with a lot of people of the same philosophy?
Because they had a different way of thinking.
Ishaq had a very defined mental construct. Everybody knew what
he was not an anti-capitalistic mullah. No, he was not. Maulana Ishaq was the most mild critic of the capitalistic governments in Pakistan.
So who was not anti-capitalistic?
Dr. Israr was extremely anti.
You see, when you say thought leaders, especially with Madrasa backing you up, then you have to be anti-capitalistic because, even if you're not, you have to preach that you are. In these both cases, both of them did preach explicitly. So why you saying he's not anti-capitalistic?
No, but Maulana Ishaq was very mild with his criticism of actually banking, he was like,
capitalist.
Oh no, I know what you're saying, but that's a certain persona that you give out, and you say that I'm not that dangerous when you.
I'll ask you a little question here, just to test this out. How come Maulana Ishaq is not mainstream, and Dr. Israr is?
Okay, so. Let's talk about the religious teachers in the golden era of Islam. So we've got the four imams of Ahl Sunnat. We've got Shafi'i, Maliki, Hanbali, and the Maliki sect, or the Safiqa. And then we've got the fiqh of Imam Jafar. That was the golden times of Islamic teaching. So at that time, these people were the most beloved Maulvis of their time. They were hated by the rulers. Most of them had serious problems with the ruling parties, but still they were the most loved people in Awam. But now, why can't we have such people who are loved by the people in general, the public, and can fight back? We were talking about Dr. Israr. He was not even loved by the people. He was not famous enough.
No Maulvi is going to be.
Yeah, but they were. They had. We've got a different definition of Maulvi at that time.
No,
but
it's the same thing. Actually, they were way bigger Maulvis, way more classical.
Classical Maulvi. So now we've lowered the definition of Maulvi.
No, we haven't lowered the definition or the perception. What we've done is we've changed the solvent.
Okay. We're going back to science.
Yeah, this is the only science. There is no other science. If Shafi'i was in Russia, with the same brain, same abilities, and even if, let me give you a simpler example. If Shafi'i comes in today, he'll be the most hated guy, just like Israr or Ishaq or anyone else. Why do you think people don't hate Ghamdi as much on the left as they
Because Ghamdi is legitimizing a lot of wrongs.
No, it's not wrong. It's not about wrong or rights.
Yeah.
If he represents something which is theologically pro
Left.
not left, the prevalent superpower.
Yeah.
And then it's not about liberalism or leftism or right.
The same was being done by Sir Syed Ahmed Khan. He was
otherwise the guy was everywhere. He was all over the place. This guy had no thought. Actually, he was. I think.
You choose your words intelligently, because when you go after Sir Syed Ahmed Khan, you might get a lot of heat.
Disease.
Oh my God! Don't say that.
You were the disease, and you better understand that. I think people like Sir Syed Ahmed Khan because they haven't read him.
Yeah.
Once you read him, you'll be like, he just didn't declare prophethood. Otherwise, he believed in everything which was pro-English version of Islam.
But still, he's got a lot of following.
I don't think so.
Our texts are full of his heroic history and
our texts are full of things that he did for the university, not for anything else.
Yeah.
So it doesn't really matter what his name was or what he looked like or what he believed in.
He
was more of a philanthropist. He's famous as a philanthropist, not as a philosopher.
As an educational leader, however.
Two things he believed in, other than the three prayers only. You wouldn't know, and I've read about him. My God, this guy was a lunatic.
Really? Don't say that. A lot of people will go after you.
I think anyone with this common sense intact, if you read about and read whatever he actually wrote, you'll find out that he was the epitome of apologetia. You know what I'm saying? He was. I think if it were up to him, he would have changed a lot of.
Fiqh?
No, fiqh. If he would have done some serious
damage
to hadith and the Quran as well. If it were up to him, of course, it would not up to him.
So the question itself was telling us that people, why should we hate mullahs? But what about the mullahs of the time of Akbar?
Let me give you know what about Shafi'i and Hanbal as well. People hated Shafi'i and Hanbal as well.
Yeah.
But that was like the landscape of the current day Yemen right now, literally, and that's how I see Yemen right now.
Yeah.
Shafi'i was sentenced to death twice.
Yeah.
Hanifa was sentenced to death and did, end up the sentence was carried forward. Hanbal was sentenced to death. Twice, to be exact. Imam Malik was the most hated man in Basra. These people were not of the West. Romans were actually the biggest ignorant people at that time. They couldn't even write their own names at that time. And they were, in witchcraft and burning women. And oh my God, I'm not.
Dark ages of.
The dark ages started later than that. Dark ages were
really dark ages.
So people were not gonna. There was no parallel narrative. And even if they were, this was the superpower of the world at that time.
Yeah.
A lot of people wanted to be Shafi in England at that time.
Yeah.
Just like a lot of people wanted to be Jabir bin Hayyan in Spain,
Spain,
Abu Sina in France.
Yeah.
And Shafi was dictating the actual construct of thought. And they were, by the way, the biggest critiques of each other.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So one follower should have hated of Shafi, should have hated Hanifa, but they didn't.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
You know
the
what I'm
beauty.
That's not the beauty. It was the way the hierarchy works. They were both representing the same node on the hierarchy.
Yeah, but still, you know,
and of course, their immediate followers did hate each other. There were a lot of fights. But the general mass did not have a polar behavior when it comes down to both of them. Here,
they were more tolerant.
Yeah, but when Ashraf Ali Thanvi started to talk about the real thought leadership, the school of Bareilly had to go blatantly against him.
Yeah.
So much so that, there was a fatwa for all Deobandis to be kafir.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
again,
let's talk about the mullahs of the time of Akbar, and then Mujaddid al-Ifsani coming into
the exception. That's an outlier. The regular mullahs were all political.
Yeah, exactly.
Those were the reason why we are the way we are. Mujaddid al-Ifsani was an exception, and that's why he became what he became. Because see, now there were a lot of Sir Sayyid Ahmad Khans at that time, and this was the only guy who was like, you know what, I'm going to clean you guys up because you guys have tampered with the core philosophy of religion. It's not politics anymore. You guys are playing around with religion. And Mujaddid al-Afsani was a pretty old man at that time, so he was not really angry at the way they were doing politics. He was angry as soon as they started toying around with the construct of religion, theology, basically. And by the way, all mullahs were against Mujaddid al-Afsani.
The normal mullahs, the political mullahs at that time. All of them were like, what are you doing, man? You're fighting against Ilahi.
Just like the current day Yemen. So, or Pakistan. Pakistan.
So, the question stands. Why should we or shouldn't we hate?
No, we should hate the Maulvi, because he's not going to clean up his act. He represents the only real philosophy, and if he cannot climb the ladder from there, then we should hate him. It's not about what is he doing. I ever doubt the intent of the Maulvi. I think he's the only clean intent person in the world. However, what am I going to do with intent? If you cannot play the game with the finest tools in the world, in the history of the planet till the day of eternity, the day of judgment, you got the finest tools, and you can't read even your own book. You know what I'm saying? And you can't reason yourself out of the bigger game, then I'm sorry, you didn't really earn the right.
So what about the preachers of the current times? Like we've got to start the Numan Ali Khan, and the whole lot which is now preaching in USA, UK. What about them? Because they're in a difficult situation. They're in the area where everybody wants them to be apologetic, and they by default are apologizing for everything that's happening in the Muslim world. If anybody does that,
I think Numan Ali Khan and Shabir Ali and Bilal Phillips. They are the prime example of how serotonin works. They are the example.
Makes sense.
The biggest indicator of how serotonin.
But see, we need to understand this. They live in a country. There are two ways of doing that. If you live in a country, doing that. If you live in a country full of infidels, and you're trying to survive.
See, that's the problem. Yes, America is not full of infidels. So the real problem is if Sam Harris can create a thought leadership diagram. You know what I'm saying? He was going against Judeo-Christianity
Christianity and
the bigger landscape. And he's not alone in this. If Sam Harris can go against American philosophy and American, prevalent psychology, you know.
But again, he was a white guy. He's a white
now that's the problem.
Yeah, that's the problem. Yeah.
No, that's the problem that we need to fix, and we can. As brown people, we can fix that. See, a Muslim or a brown person are two different things. Now, I can count on a lot of people who are white in America who convert, and they need to get the serotonin straight and the science learned.
Talk about two of the very prominent Maulvis of their time. Let's talk about Maulana Abdul Wahab, you know, the pioneer of the Wahhabi sect. So, what do you think is the position of Abdul Wahab in the hierarchy?
Way lower. I'll tell you why. Because first and foremost, Arabs were in a very different momentum when Abdul Wahab actually started.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of ties were with America, and because Abdul Wahab was fighting against Al Saud, not the Arabs.
Yeah.
And the Saud family was coming into real power at that time, and Abdul Wahab was against the status quo, which was on the street, even in Pakistan and India.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So he started with a philosophy of. By the way, in current day Saudi Arabia is way more Abdul Wahab philosophy now. Then of course Turkey.
At that time.
Turkey was at that time.
Yeah.
Because I think he became so famous so fast because he was so clean and so clear that.
The Najdi brand
it would have toppled the
government
mainstream right at that time. Actually, it makes it the right at that time.
Yeah.
Because this guy was too liberal. I'm saying he was against the superstition of
Superstition,
the right. And I think this is what I whenever I read about whatever he had to write and whatever happened to him, I think this is just another example of how leadership is oblivious to life and death.
Yeah.
And I don't know why Pakistanis actually think that's Wahhabism.
Yeah.
And that's so not Wahhabism. Actually, he just, he had a way lower demand. He never even bothered to change the philosophy in the top 2, 3, 4, scaffoldings of the Muslim hierarchy. He was just trying to get the people out of the bid'ah.
Yeah.
That was his credo. That the bid'ah should stop, and amongst other things. But this was something which.
So what about Abul Qadir Jilani rahmatullah alayh? Where do you place him in the hierarchy?
You see, that's something real thought leadership actually comes into play. He was the only thing he was doing was changing the thought of people. You know what I'm saying? This is a clan which never changes the behavior.
Yeah.
It actually affects the thought only. And of course, based on the philosophy, and that philosophy was pretty prevalent at that time. Yeah. Now it's not. We only know the mystic side of Abdul Qadir Jilani. We don't know the actual. Because I'm dead certain most of the people who have heard the name don't know that he was a humbly with. I think he was way more of a Maulvi and a Mullah than we can ever have here.
Here, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. But we all say, hey, all hail Rumi and all hail Jilani. They were the classic Maulvis.
Yeah, classic Maulvis.
Their fatwas are about smaller things. Our Maulvi is way more liberal than these two.
These two,
Especially Abdul Qadir Jilani. He was an out-and-out humbly, and he was a classic Maulvi, as classical as it gets.
Yeah.
However, his influence on the spiritual side of things.
Yeah. He was more of a Sufi.
No, he wasn't.
He's painted as a Sufi though.
Because of the practices.
The practices, yeah.
And because if you were a Sufi, he wouldn't have been a humbly.
Yeah,
You can't
you cannot be both at the same time. They are the two poles opposite.
He was actually doing a
So
lot.
this question has been discussed like in depth, I believe. And
Yeah, I think after this, if you look at so many names which created such a big influence, you wouldn't really hate the Maulvi.
Yeah.
You would try and create a bigger impression of the Maulvi in a bigger picture.
Yeah.
From taking it from a little farther in history than the current Maulvi in your street. And these Maulvis that are in the street right now, they were there in the time of Imam Malik and Mullah Nasir, the Caliph of who killed Abu Hanifa.
Yeah.
These Maulvis are everywhere.
Everywhere.
You better hate them. That's why I said you better hate this Maulvi.
Yeah.
I hate the Maulvi who was actually, who squealed on Abu Hanifa and says, this guy is giving a fatwa against you guys to the Caliph.
Yeah.
And there were way more Maulvis under the Ottoman Empire, a lot.
Yeah.
Those are all Maulvi run
Nations.
regimes.
Regimes,